Today's question comes from Dan in Washington, D.C. I'm a landlord who owns multiple rental properties. Over the past year or two, rent prices have seen a big increase. This is great for a landlord, but not so great for the tenant. I know I need to raise my rental rates to keep up with the increased overhead costs. However, this causes direct hardship to my tenants that have been good tenants for the past few years. As a Christian, this is hard for me. I would feel bad if raising rent caused them to have to move after they've made the house their home. I did...
Really? Are you? Okay. Introspection on the topic may be a rare occurrence, let's be honest. But, like, landlords never think about the additional costs that their tenants will incur. When they raise their rent, they're only looking to make sure that they're not losing any of their profitability because, maybe utility costs are rising, property taxes are rising, their own, like I said, overhead costs and overhead costs tied to operations, maintenance going up. I'm already having an aneurysm. No. And the worst part is that I have had plenty of discussions with landlords and landlord bootlickers who think that they're like owning a leftist whenever they, talk about how, liberals and leftists are really shooting themselves in the foot whenever they're not nice to landlords. And missing the whole point that when you are fighting for subsidized housing, if you're a YIMBY neoliberal shill, or public housing or FIMBY, if you're based like us, comrades? And we are probably the funniest thing that anybody has ever said to me, and they really thought it was an own, like a real dunk, about how, leftists who fight for rent control, and increased costs in living, like livable wages, increasing the minimum wage, that leads to inflation, in which case landlords will have to raise their rents because, again, they don't incur any costs out of pocket. They have their profit margins. They're only increasing their revenue year over year. They're not going backwards. They're going forwards. And if it means raising the rents 20%, 22%, 25%, which we have already seen last year, they will. And how it's not in our interest to want to make any changes to our own economic conditions. It's not in our best interest to fight for higher wages or rent control or rent stabilization laws or anything that will put a cap in how much rent landlords can charge us. Because landlords are just going to find a workaround. And they admit that much. Such a left NIMBY move. I've thought about starting a church. What kind of church? I can see you, or you're a real crypto bro. I can't see you do anything. I'm not saying that. But aren't you pretty into crypto? Timmy too? Are you going to do is it going to be a double educational service type thing? Dialectics. Oh. You'd be surprised how much that works. Well, you don't have to pay taxes.
Not get into real estate to subsidize people's living expenses, but I also didn't get into real estate to displace families either. I love investing in real estate, so I don't see myself exiting this field, so I'd like to hear your advice on how to balance this equation.
It is sweet that you've got a big heart like this, and that's a nice thing. And you're not exiting the landlord field. And so you are going to have to learn to balance your faith with business practices that are not...
Forgo your Christian beliefs. Yeah, dialectics is good. But also, this landlord is straight up telling this Christian to just surrender their own Christian values if they want to be making money. And honestly, can you even be a good Christian and a good businessman at the same time?
Dishonoring to your faith. Treat other people like you would want to be treated. Okay? I lease a building for Ramsey Solutions that is an office warehouse. We're not the owner of it. About 5 miles from where we sit right now, from our buildings that we own. And the lease is coming up for renewal. If the guy raises my rent to market rate, why does that make him a bad Christian?
Because, like, I know we're on the topic of Jesus, but I'm pretty sure in what has been cataloged as what we have been told is actual dialogue between Jesus and the homies, he was pretty adamant in not being rich, not hanging out with the rich, not fucking with the rich, not fucking the rich. He was like, no. Get your scummy ass out of here, alright? And it wasn't just like, I hate rich people. It was like, don't exploit people for your own personal gain or something to that effect. I don't know. I don't really know what all he said. He was mostly all around pro good vibes. One of the fucking commandments is pretty much don't be a greedy ass little bitch. Oh. Jesus got mad once? No. When he kicked over the money changer tables. Look, I'm not a religious person, but I will 100% make a political argument using the own gospel as reference to why Republicans are so goddamn hypocritical. I can't give you the details. I don't know what Jesus really said. Well, you see, Jesus was poor, so that means it's good for you to stay poor. He expressed frustration that Temple was profiting as far as I can remember. You can ask me, I was there. Jesus said, blessed are the meek, also XQC is poggers.
That was a passive-aggressive question. Answer is, it doesn't. Okay, I own rental property, single-family homes, among many other properties that we own. And if I raise my rent to be market rate, that does not make me a bad Christian. I did not displace the person out of that house if they can no longer afford it. The marketplace did. The economy did. The ratio of the income that they earned to their housing expense displaced them. I didn't cause any of that. And so you are not displacing them. You're taking too much credit.
He's not guilty. He just got caught. Look, hey, supply side Jesus would have had this guy's back, okay? He is not doing a disservice to his tenants who he is pricing out, because it just so happens the way that land valuation works, the way that appreciation works. Sometimes when costs rise, property taxes, other things, those costs that directly hit the owner of the property, landlord being the owner, the landlord isn't going to incur that cost. No, why would they? The landlord is going to make the tenant incur that cost. See, landlords do not take any additional cost burden. They pass it off to their tenant. They put that additional cost burden onto their tenant, because landlords are never going to make less in the next year than they're making this year. And see, that is where landlords don't care. This is where their business practices and their Christianity, there's a fork in the road. They would rather increase their profit margins than take a hit. Take a partial hit. They would rather offload that cost burden directly onto their tenants. And if the tenants can't pay for it, well, sucks to suck. Landlords have the ability, they have the control over the price that they set. In some cases, they price gouge. What even is fair market rate? It has to be profitable, right? They have profit margins, they have goals, they have thresholds. And not even a sick, dying, poor, unemployed tenant will stand in the way of a landlord and their profits. Does that sound Christian to you? Does that sound being charitable, giving, kind, compassionate, having the power to maybe not make as much? See, the thing is that you're not fooling anyone here that a landlord, by not raising rents every year in accordance to whatever the market says it is, would not be making a profit if they maybe reduced their overall rental rates down to, I don't know, half of what they were originally planning to charge upon renewal. No, they don't care. They don't care. They're still making money. They're still making profits. The entire rental market is based, adjusted to ensure that the property owners, they get a return. The cost of rent is more in monthly, annual profits than the cost of the mortgage. Otherwise, they wouldn't own the stock in the first place, the housing stock, the physical property. They took out the mortgage, no one forced them. If they default, oh well, that's what Chase told my mom when her house was foreclosed on, so why doesn't the same logic apply to parasites? Well, much like small business owners, landlords think that they are the ones taking on the risk, and they deserve to have high rewards because they're taking on that additional risk. And because we all need housing, housing is a need that's been commodified. It's a guarantee that people will pay as much as they can bear to keep a roof over their head. It's not a risk if you don't ever fail. Yeah. Landlords seem to, some smaller mom and pop landlords do fail, but they're still landlords, so. Which is why, you know, a lot of people, even some conservatives, are kind of weary about the fact that corporate landlords are really getting into the game and really purchasing a lot of available housing on the market and really making heavy investments and expanding their portfolios. How long do you think it will be until, you know, corporate landlords just have a monopoly over the entire rental housing market, where it's the same as our, you know, cable network companies, mergers, acquisitions, the entire rental housing market owned by 4 major corporations on Wall Street. Limited liabilities, LLCs, please. Sorry, my bad.
credit for what's going on.
I wonder why he thinks about the owners of slaves. By his logic, he isn't a bad Christian if he owns slaves. After all, he didn't bring them over to the ship. The market did that. Yeah, something says that this person will do mental gymnastics until they're seasick.
If they need to move to a cheaper house because they can't afford, they're going to move to a lesser house. Because if they move, they're going to pay market rent. Now,
are you
having
shaming?
said all of
are
that,
you, on top of everything else, are you shaming your tenants who are forced to move because you've priced them out? Is that what you're doing? Is that what you're doing? Now you're saying, at least I was providing a holier than thou dwelling? You know, at least with my overpriced properties, it was blessed with the love of Jesus Christ.
that
What the fuck?
I've had situations because I manage the properties with a heart and a head, both. I don't personally manage them, but we do. My family does. That someone is sick. I'll just, I remember one time, a long time ago, a lady had cancer. Am I going to evict someone in the middle of chemo? No, I'm not. I'm going to work with them. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to have clear conversations. I want to know what's really going on.
I just assume that they're fucking lying. Yeah, by default.
By the situation.
By default, just
but on the
assume
other
they're
hand,
lying.
I also want to treat other people like
I will ask for the receipts every time chemo occurs. I will demand that you provide me with your medical records. I don't care that it is a HIPAA violation. I'm going to need to see the actual evidence that you have cancer.
want to be treated. That's a biblical mandate.
I don't
And
believe that
so
shit
if
at
I
all.
were in that situation, how would I want to be treated? Well, I'd love some mercy, some grace.
What do you mean? I don't believe that shit at all.
But mercy and grace because rents went up in general, and I can't afford to live here anymore because my job didn't go up as much as the much as the cost of a loaf of bread or a gallon of gasoline went up. Because welcome to inflation. This is not something you caused. Now you didn't cause the cancer either, but that is a temporary thing. This other thing's going to be there forever. That family is never going to be able to afford to live there if they can't afford to live there. It's not going to change. Now, if they come in and they go, I'm getting a raise in 4 months, and here's the contract, can you wait then? Yeah, I'll give them a little mercy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But this idea that you have to equate Christian and kindness with not having good marketplace experience is not true. It's not a factual way of viewing this.
And you brought this up with a caller earlier who was kind of experiencing a similar situation, and you said, hey, this is being a good steward of the asset that you are managing. And, he says in the question that they've made the house their home. It's not their home. It's your home. It'll never be their home as long as they're...
So true, King. Thank you so much for saying that. Hey, listen, renters don't ever actually have a home. They're at risk for displacement at all times. Never get cozy. Prepare for the worst. This is why dispossession is really common in areas that are going through downward economic mobility. The race down to the bottom in cities, communities where economic shifts are leading to massive numbers of people leaving, migration to other economic hubs. This causes a lot of issues. Like, think about Detroit. Went through like a very similar instance where, like, obviously no jobs in an area makes it really difficult to be able to keep things as is in terms of the housing market, the jobs market. And landlords are typically only putting in as much money in renovations as their highest bidder or their highest paying customer. That's why you have slumlords who do the bare minimum when it comes to what they will put into the home if it's old, if it's in an area that is not doing lions to teeth. Thank you. Landlords will hold off on doing as much maintenance work in areas where maybe rents are lower compared to other parts of town. And they're only putting money into their properties that will eventually lead to higher rates from maybe a more affluent group of settlers down the line. Gentrification style renovations. For these reasons, tenants are never safe, and God forbid they ever try to make their rented house a home. Also, ownership translates into political power. Renters don't hold as much political power as owners do. We know this as well. Renters are transient. They can be up and moved at any time. Displaced. Priced out. They could be experiencing homelessness because they're, evicted for non-payment. Tenants are considered expendable in the eyes of many local politicians, state politicians, Congress people. People don't necessarily carry as much weight in the votes, decisions, grievances, advocacies of renters. I wonder why. Whenever you're anchored to a place and that is where you live, that is where you rest, that is where you work, or it's where you have your second home, or third home, or fourth. A city council member, a mayor, a city planner, anyone who is in the business of upholding a local municipal government, they will care more about the person who is permanent than the renter. Renters can up and go at any time. That's why it's really hard for city council to respond to rent control policies, even though it's getting more popular for renters to stay in that cycle, because we are now a society of renters, just the way that Wall Street wanted it, just what they intended. Still, we just as imbalanced as the rental contracts, where the owner, the landlord, has that undue power, the tenant does not. It's the same thing in our political landscape. Landowners, capitalists, CEOs, small business owners, they're the ones who have more stake. They're the ones sitting at that table, making those land use decisions. They're the ones getting the tax breaks. They're the ones getting the special funds with public-private partnerships. They're the ones who have the ability to remove their tenants at any turn, which is perhaps why local politicians don't really care too much about what renters have to say. In 1 year's time, they could be migrating to another place because it's the only place that they afford. Don't want to get too cozy with their renter constituents, now do they? I would evict a terminally ill pill. I wouldn't evict a terminally. Oh my god, sorry for that gingerbread. Sorry for. Goodness, no. Just let me know when you're dying. You're not dying, so we can work out a payment arrangement. I like how they said, cancer's not permanent, all right? Cancer is not permanent. Your inability to pay rent based on the increase in rate as per your new contract, that is forever. God blesses those that deserve it. Hail Mary territory.
renting it.
Good point.
And
when you're a renter, you kind of know that.
Yeah.
I've been a renter. And
Anybody want to save this hype train? Anybody want to save this hype train to make me feel like I'm special? So then I can feel that I got a subby because God said I deserved it. Thanks, Anonymous Cheer. I almost wish that you would have let the hype train die. It would have taught me a lesson. Gotta know when to stop being so sarcastic. Sometimes it's not time. It's not time. Hercules, thank you. Bumblebee 123, thank you. Anonymous Cheer, thank you. And Christina, thank you for subscribing. How are you doing? Christina. Good to see you here. Thank you so much for hanging out. Hope that you're doing well.
I didn't expect to stay there. I'm passing through. No one that rents, very few people that rent go, I want to be here 50 years. I think I'm just going to stay in your house for 50 years.
Yeah, but why do they end up staying for as long as they can? Is it having to do with the fact that they don't qualify for a mortgage? And they have no choice? They're literally unable to qualify for a loan so that they can stop giving you half of their paycheck every month? Thank you, showing up for resubscribing 13 months in a row. Thank you so much.
No one does that.
This is my forever home. I'm a renter. No one says this.
And honestly,
things that people don't say.
I like taking it situation by situation and going, is this a true hardship, or is it really, you got to tighten up the budget? And so at that point, I may give them some resources, maybe some Ramsey resources to say, hey, here's the total money makeover. I want to help you create that margin. I'd love to keep you as a tenant. You've been great.
And how you interact with them in kindness is fine, too. You don't have to be unkind. You don't have to be cold and transactional. You can go, understand.
Yeah, just break it down. Sit them down and say, look, how much are you paying me in rent money? Oh, like 40%. So interesting, because I take 40% of your monthly pay, and I actually expect no less than a 40% profit margin increase, because I'm expanding my empire of duplexes in the Alexandria, Arlington, Washington, D.C. area. So, obviously, I have to make as much money as possible, which means I have to take 40% of your monthly income. Sorry. So, it's not looking good for me. Pandemic, inflationary period, costs are going up. I really, really enjoy a daily cup of Starbucks. And sometimes one at night. I'm obsessed with Misha's coffee. You should try it. Old Town, Alexandria. You won't regret it. I'm sorry. So, I have my expenses, bills to pay. I need to get my profit margins in check. I'm going to need to now take 45% of your monthly paycheck. And if you can't pay it, well, I'm sorry, you can't expect me to make any adjustments to my life. I mean, I have a retirement fund. I have my own expenses. You can't possibly ask me to take some sort of hit. Why would I take a hit? My job is not to take a financial hit. My job is to see that my own personal expenses have made a slight alteration because of inflation, and I'm going to make you pay for it. Did you really look up and see if Misha's Coffee was a real place? Astral Storm, thank you so much for resubscribing. Now I need to know more about what landlords are spending their cash on. Well, it depends. Like, some of them are really cheap, some of them are not. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's the D word. Well, we are in Hail Mary territory. What's the D word? Okay, so the point being is that landlords, obviously, their whole shtick is that they never incur an additional payment to their own expenses, their own finances, personal expenses, personal finance, business, operating expenses. Like, they don't do that. I got automated for saying manifest destiny. I think that D word. I don't think we have automated destiny. I don't think we have destiny automated.
It hurts my heart, but I'm doing this with all these things. Now, if you've got a property that's gone way up, maybe you stage it up. And that's how you'd want to be treated if you were there. Treat other people like you want to be treated. But if you really would expect to get to live there...
We did?
...on rental rates that are 75% of the market forever, just because your landlord's a Christian, then you've got something screwed in your brain. You really do. That's just not how things... That is not a calling of the Bible. That is not something Scripture calls us to undercharge because we're Christians. Now, we don't need to overcharge. We don't need to rip people off. We certainly want to tell the truth. And those kinds of things. We're not trying to...
I mean, if you're telling the truth, you could start by admitting that the government outsourced responsibility to provide people with the bare necessities to shitbags like you. And the rental market has a built-in profit margin already, so fair market rate is whatever is going to cover your costs of mortgage payment and then whatever else on top of that. And then whatever else is not going to your monthly expenses, your expenditures, or property taxes. You pocket the rest. It's literally like a built-in profit motive scheme. And the game is that you increase your profit margins year over year. You always make more the next year than you're making right now. It's a business. You bring it up all the time. It's not enough for you to just break even the same amount year over year, just like your tenants. Your tenants probably don't get that much of a raise. And if you found out that they did, you would raise your rent and you would take their own profit margins that they got from their well-earned raise. Wouldn't you? Fuck. I'm pretty sure you would. Imagine. Like, imagine, like, going through these leaps and these bounds to justify why you exploit hardworking people. You extract as much wealth as possible, and if they can't pay, too bad. Get the fuck out.
Take advantage in some way. But sometimes people get in their head that anybody that sells anything can't be a Christian. You know, I can't believe you don't just give all your stuff away, Ramsey. All these people that work here, 1,100 of them that want payroll, they require that I don't give my stuff away because they like for their payroll checks to clear. That's how this stuff works. That's why we sell a book instead of giving away a book. Can I personally afford to give you a $2 or $10 or $20 book? Yeah, I can personally afford to do that. But I got to make sure that the people here eat that work on this stuff. And so it's not an unchristian act to have interaction in the marketplace.
It's a good word.